Now we are going to discuss about the conservation of forest and wildlife in India from chapter number 2, forest and wildlife resources. Actually. So as we discussed earlier that the human activities has caused a lot of destruction to the forest and the wildlife resources of our country. Okay. And because of which there is a depletion of the forest and the wildlife resources. Okay. So in order to conserve the present forest and the wildlife resources which exist in our country, we need to follow various strategies. We need to follow various measures actually. Okay. And not only the common people, but also on the part of the government also, the government needs to follow, or the government has adopted various policies and all, okay, to protect this forest and the wildlife resources actually. So we are going to discuss about those programs which were undertaken by the government to protect the forest and the wildlife resources, as well as the various initiatives which were taken by the common people to carry out this conservation uh, strategy. Okay. So conservation in the background of rapid decline in wildlife population and forestry has become essential. Okay. So as we saw the data, it reveals that the forest and the wildlife resources has declined to a very large extent actually. Now it has become very much essential actually to conserve this forest and the wildlife resources. Okay. So this conservation actually, okay, so why do we need to conserve this actually? So this conservation is required because the conservation helps in preserving the ecological diversity and support our life support system. Okay, such as water, air, and soils. Okay. So basically the conservation of the forest resources actually, okay, it is very much essential because it helps in preserving the ecological diversity. Ecological diversity means the various components, okay, the various living organisms, plant that which include the plants and the animals actually which exist. Okay, they help the human beings actually, okay, in different ways. Not only this, but they also help in maintaining the continuous supply of water, air, and maintaining the quality of the soil. Okay, so this is why it is very much essential to preserve the ecological diversity, which includes the forest and the wildlife resources. So this conservation methods, various conservation methods, actually it preserves the genetic diversity of the plants and animals for better growth of the species and breeding. Okay, so the conservation techniques, okay, various conservation strategies, it helps in preserving the genetic diversity of various types of plants and the animals, okay, which will help us in the near future, okay, to increase their population through breeding actually. For example, in agriculture, we are still dependent on traditional crop varieties. Fisheries too are heavily dependent on the maintenance of aquatic biodiversity. Okay, in agriculture, we are still dependent on the traditional crop varieties actually, though the HYB seeds and all they have came into existence, but then also the traditional varieties of crops are being grown in our country still. Okay, because this will help in maintaining the genetic diversity in the long run actually. Okay. So various strategies has been adopted by the government of India to protect the forest and the wildlife resources. Okay, like in the year 1960s and 1970s, the conservationists, they demanded a national wildlife protection program. Okay, so during the year 1960s and 1970s, actually, the environmentalists and the conservationists, okay, they demanded that a national wildlife protection program must be implemented by the government actually, through which protection can be given to the forest and the wildlife resources. Okay, so as an outcome of that, the Indian Wildlife Protection Act was implemented in the year 1972 with various provisions for protecting the habitats. Okay, and in the year 1972, the government of India, they implemented the Wildlife Protection Act. Okay, to protect the habitat of this wildlife resources, to protect the habitat of this forest resources. Habitat means a particular area where these animals, plants, and the animals, okay, they can live properly. They get their natural environment to survive. Actually. Okay, and overall, and an all India list of protected species was published. Okay, and even a list of protected species was published actually, and the name of the plants and the animals were included actually in this list. which needs protection actually, whose number has reduced to drastically and they needs conservation protection actually. So list of those protected species were published, okay, by this government actually, to ensure that these animals and the plants, okay, they are protected. Okay, the thrust of the program was towards protecting the remaining population of certain endangered species by banning hunting, given legal protection to their habitats, and restricting trade in wildlife. Okay, so the main objective of this Forest Policy Wildlife Protection Act, which was implemented in 1972, was to implement a program actually, okay, through which the remaining population of these endangered plants and animals can be protected. Okay, and how they can be protected? By banning hunting, okay, by banning deforestation, okay, by giving legal protection to their habitat, and by restricting the trade in wildlife, because many a times we can see that the wild animals are being captured and they are being sold in the international market. So such kind of trade, okay, which was prevalent earlier, has been restricted in our country actually. Subsequently, the central and the many state governments, they established national parks and the wildlife sanctuaries, about which you have already studied actually. Okay, and subsequently, the central government and the state government, they have they have set up many national parks and the wildlife sanctuaries actually. Okay, in class 9 also you have studied about this wildlife sanctuaries and all. Okay, so like in case of West Bengal also, we are having many wildlife sanctuaries and the national parks. Like even in our locality, we are having the Mahananda Wildlife Sanctuary. Okay, and even some national parks are there, like Boxer Tiger Reserve is there. Okay, Gorumara National Park is there. So these are the these are the notified areas by the government actually. Okay, and these areas has been notified as a wildlife sanctuary, as a national park, or a forest reserve and all, so that the plants and the animals which exist in this particular areas, actually notified areas, can be protected. Okay, the central government also announced several projects for protecting specific animals which were gravely threatened, including the tiger, the one-horned rhinoceros, the Kashmir stag or the hangul, and the three types of crocodile, that is the freshwater crocodile, the saltwater crocodile, and the gharial. Okay, even the programs were launched for the protection of the Asiatic lions and the others actually. Okay, so in our country, we can find that these animals, okay, like the tiger, okay, the Kashmiri stag or the hangul, the crocodiles, okay, the Asiatic lions, okay, the elephants and all, their number has reduced drastically, okay, because of illegal hunting and poaching. Their number, the number of this animal species has gone down to a certain limit, that if they are not protected, a day will come that they will get extincted actually. Okay, so in order to give protection to this species of animals and all, the government has introduced various projects actually. Okay, and some of these projects are like Project Tiger and all, okay, which we will be discussing. See, so most recently, the Indian elephant, the black buck, which is also known as chinkara, the great Indian bustard, which is known as godawan, and the snow leopard, etc., have given full or partial legal protection against hunting and trade throughout India. And recently in our country, okay, these animals like the black buck, okay, which is known as chinkara, snow leopard, and godawan and all, they have also been included in the list of protected species. Okay, means this species will be given protection, okay, through legal measures and all, like illegal hunting and killing of this animals strictly banned, and if any people is engaged in this kind of activities, okay, they will be sentenced, okay, to prison, or they will be imprisoned and all. Okay, see, so one such project is the Project Tiger actually. Okay, one such project is the Project Tiger, which was launched by the government of India to preserve or to protect the tiger population of our country. Like in our country, the tigers, like there were a huge number of tigers in our country earlier. Okay, but because of illegal hunting and habitat destruction, the number of tigers got reduced, dwindled to very less actually. Okay, so in order to protect this tiger species, actually, the government of India introduced the Project Tiger in the year 1973. Okay, in the year 1973, the Project Tiger was introduced actually. Okay, because the government realized that the tiger population has dwindled to 1827 from an estimated 55,000 at the turn of the century. Okay, because the government, they realized that the population, okay, in 1973, the population of tiger was only 1827, but whereas in the last century, it was around 55,000 actually. Okay, so from 55,000, it has reduced to 1827. Okay, so we can imagine that the tiger population has reduced drastically actually. Okay. So the major threats to tiger population are numerous. Okay, so basically this tigers, okay, population they reduce because of numerous threats such as uh, poaching for trade. Okay, they were killed for their skin and all. Okay, shrinking habitat, that is the area where they live actually. Okay, means the that particular area destruction of the habitat took place, depletion of the prey-based species, and even they the animals on which they used to feed actually there was a reduction in the number of species, number of population of those animals also, and because of growing population actually. Okay, so the trade of tiger skin and the use of their bones in traditional medicine, especially in the Asian countries, left the tiger population on the verge of extinction. Okay, and even the skin of the tiger and the bones of the tigers, they were used, okay, for making various kinds of traditional medicines and all. So this is the reason that in the continent of Asia, the population of tiger reduced drastically, and it was in the verge of extinction actually. Okay. Since India and Nepal provide habitat to about two-thirds of the surviving tiger population in the world, these two nations became prime targets for poaching and illegal trading actually. Okay. And around two-thirds, that is around 66% of the total population of uh, the tiger population in the world can be found in Nepal and India. So means Nepal and India became the target for the illegal traders and all. Okay. They started illegal hunting and trading of this tiger in our country actually. Okay. So the government of India, in order to protect these tiger species, introduced the Project Tiger in the 1973. In 1973, actually, okay. And according to this project, actually, the Project Tiger, okay, various tiger reserves were made. Actually, okay, so the areas were notified as tiger reserve, and in those areas, the rules were like very strict rules were set. Okay, that and the normal people they cannot enter the forest and all. Okay, and any kind of human interference will not be tolerated, and if the people are found engaged in the hunting and killing of the tiger population and all, okay, they will be sentenced to jail and all, and fine will be there. Okay, so the tiger conservation has viewed not only as an effort to save an endangered species, but with equal importance as a means of preserving biotypes of sizable magnitude. Okay, so this Project Tiger was launched not only to protect the tiger species actually, but also to maintain the balance in the environment actually. Okay, the balance between the uh, increasing number of these other animals, and okay, to like reduce their, because the tigers are there in the forest, and this is why the other animals population is in balance. But if the tigers are not there, so what will happen? The animals of the other species, okay, their population will increase rapidly. Okay, so which may cause a threat actually. So in order to maintain the balance actually, okay, we need to maintain a sizable number of population, okay, of this tiger actually. So various tiger reserves were formed in the country, like the Corbett National Park in Uttarakhand, Sundarban National Park in West Bengal, Bandhavgarh National Park in Madhya Pradesh, Sariska Wildlife Sanctuary in Rajasthan, Manas Tiger Reserve in Assam, and Periyar Tiger Reserve in Kerala. Okay, are some of the tiger reserves of India actually. Okay, so these are the various tiger reserves which were set up according to this Project Tiger. Okay, which and these tiger reserves were set up just to protect the tigers of living in this particular area actually. Okay, and one more Project Tiger, like tiger reserve in West Bengal, in North Bengal, is actually the Boxer Tiger Reserve. Okay, like which I have mentioned earlier in my last class actually. Okay, so the Boxer Tiger Reserve is one such tiger reserve in the northern part of West Bengal actually. Okay, where it is believed that the tiger population used to exist before, but now only a few, like a number of tigers may exist actually. Okay, so this is how the government of India actually, okay, they came out with various conservation strategies to protect the wildlife resources of our country. Okay, so the conservation projects are now focusing on biodiversity rather than on a few of its components, and now the conservation projects are focusing on the entire biodiversity, on the entire uh, plants and animal species of a particular area instead of focusing on particular group of animals or plants actually. Okay. So there is now a more intensive search for different conservation measures. Okay. So now the government is looking for the alternative methods, okay, to protect the entire biological diversity, to protect all those plants and the animal species which are found in a particular geographical area. Okay. Increasingly, even insects beginning to find a place in the conservation planning. Even the insects are now the given protection actually, because these insects, the microorganisms and all, okay, they help in maintaining the you can say biological system actually. Okay. So in the notification on the Wildlife Act of 1980s and 1986, several hundred butterflies, moths, beetles, and one dragonfly have been added to the list of protected species. Okay, so in 1980s and 1986, the butterflies, the moths, the beetles, okay, they also have been added in the list of the protected species. Okay, through which, so that this species of insects can be given protection. Okay, so that their numbers there are a sizable number of them can be maintained. Okay, because they also help the environment, they also help the human beings and all, directly and indirectly actually. Okay. So this is what about the various conservation strategies, okay, which has been undertaken by the government of India to protect the forest and the wildlife resources of our country.